What scares a successful man more than any horror movie? It's not Ghost. It's not the guy with the chainsaw or the shadow in the corner. It's not even running out of caffeine, although that's a big fear for a lot of us. No, the scariest thing for a man who's built something, it's what's hiding in his own head. Today, we're doing a Halloween deep dive into real monsters that haunt high achieving men. Fears that steal your confidence, drain your clarity, and keep you from stepping into your full potential. If you're a man who's already accomplished something, whether that's in your business, your family, your finances, this one's going to hit deep because the monsters I'm talking about, they don't hide under your bed. They hide in your success. So let's start with Freddy. Remember him, Freddy Krueger? Knives for hands, burn up, ugly sweater. The monster that gets you in your dreams. He doesn't chase you in the street. He waits till you're asleep, vulnerable. Well, that's the fear of failure for high achieving men. It sneaks in when you finally relax. It shows up after the win. When the deal's done and the numbers hit, the title's earned, that little voice whispers, what if you can't do it again? What if this was luck? What if you've already peaked? Freddy's knocking on the door. Well, here's what's going on neurologically, because we all know I love a little neuroscience. When you've had a success, your brain wires your identity to that win. That's a good thing. But the amygdala, the brain's fear center, it doesn't care about what's on your resume. It sees risk in any unknown, and it doesn't separate risk out. Any risk is a risk. It registers the same way it registers the idea of jumping in a tank full of sharks wearing a meat suit. So every new challenge feels like a threat. Cortisol spikes. Your brain starts screaming, protect, don't risk, don't fail. No, don't do that. And because you've tasted that high of achievement, well, failure now feels fatal. Not to your life, but to your ego, to your identity, to who you believe you are. Epictetus said, if you wish to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. The Stoic philosophers didn't fear failure, they feared stagnation. They train themselves to want discomfort because discomfort is the gym of the mind. The Stoic path says, don't be afraid to fail because that's part of life. Be afraid to stop learning. In Psalms 37:24, it says, though he fall, he shall not be cast headlong, for the Lord upholds his hand. Failure is part of your walk. It's not a detour, it's the terrain. If you're walking with purpose, you're going to trip, but you'll also be upheld by a relationship with God. So let me make a few suggestions here if this is the demon that's running around inside of your dreams. Try running the Intentional Microfail Challenge. We've talked about this in a previous episode, but in case you missed it, for 7 days, attempt something small that you know that you might, not might fail at, that you're likely to probably fail at on purpose. Post a short video, try the hard cold plunge. For me, I tried the cold shower, like daily cold shower thing. Yeah, talk about fears. Try writing or speaking about something new. We all know the old adage that the guy giving the eulogy would rather be in the coffin because everybody's afraid of public speaking. This isn't about the task. It's about rewiring that fear loop in your brain. Every time you survive, air quotes, a loss, air quotes again, because, right, we're not playing with anything too detrimental. Your brain says, hey, that wasn't so bad. And that's how resilience is built. Exposure therapy with dignity. Maybe that's challenging weights in the gym. Maybe it's keeping that commitment to yourself to get up and walk every day or to write that book. Whatever that challenge is, guys, it only has to seem scary and a high likelihood that you're not actually going to succeed, air quotes, at it. But that exposure therapy with dignity, you're controlling it, will actually start to forge the neural pathways in your brain that says falling isn't so bad. Failure is not so final. And it will help you overcome things going forward. Because here's the truth. Every man you admire has failed harder than you're probably currently willing to try. They didn't just let failure define them, they let it refine them. The difference between the man who builds legacy and the one who plateaus, one faces Freddy in the dream, the other lets him win. But maybe it's not the fall that haunts you. Failure is not your concern. Well, before we rip the mask off of the next fear, we're going to tread into dreamland and take a moment to thank the folks who help keep the lights on while giving you an incredible chance to dream. That's right. We're talking about our friends Mike Lindell and MyPillow, who are our favorite sponsors of the show, and we're proud to be sponsored by them. They're an amazing American employee-owned company, guys, that has over 250 incredible products made right here in the USA for the most part. I am a MyPillow person. Like, we're a MyPillow household. We have MyPillow sheets, MyPillow pillows, we have MyPillow towels, we have MyPillow kitchen towels. My wife wears MyPillow slippers. I've got a MyPillow travel pillow that goes with me everywhere. Guys, we love MyPillow because they help us get to dreamland. My sleep has improved incredibly with my MyPillow. I absolutely love it. And right now, because you listen to this show and they're sponsors of our show, MyPillow offers our listeners an incredible deal. That's up to 80% off all the time. That's right. You can use promo code THRIVE to get up to 80% off your order at MyPillow anytime. MyPillow is always running incredible sales, guys, but that promo code, it's good for free shipping over $75 and up to 80% off your shipping, or up to 80% off your order anytime, all the time for our listeners, besides the amazing promos they're running. And right now, I can tell you, shipping's free. So now is an incredible time to stock up. The holiday season is upon us. Get those gifts that say you really care by giving people a wonderful night's sleeps. Use promo codes THRIVE, get to Dreamland, and kick Freddy's ass. Let's get back to the show.
The Driven to Thrive broadcast, purpose, growth, and lasting impact for men. Helping men go from living to thriving, purpose-filled, intentional lives.
Welcome to the Driven to Thrive broadcast, purpose, growth, and lasting impact for men. I'm your host, Brent Dallin, and we help men go from living to thriving, purpose-filled, intentional lives. In honor of being the week of Halloween, which is my favorite holiday, we're going to deep dive into the top 5 fears men must conquer as we strive for greatness. And because it is Halloween week, we've got the spooky lights on in the studio, and we're going to do our best to use Halloween slasher villains as metaphors as we talk about these fears. So we'll see how well that goes. Maybe your fear is not the fall of failure. Maybe it's the fear that someone's going to pull off your mask and see underneath the success. So let's talk about the fear of being found out, aka imposter syndrome, which is incredibly common even among high-achieving men. Let's talk about Ghostface. You know him. Scream. Always wears a mask, hiding behind the scenes.
Changing his voice.
Making sure you know that he could be anyone, anywhere, anytime. And striking with the threat of exposure when you're least expecting it and most vulnerable. That's imposter syndrome.
What if they find out I'm not as good as they think I am?
You've built something. You've earned trust. People look to you like you got it all figured out. But inside, there's that whisper. You're not that good. They're going to find you out. You just got lucky. Even your wins feel like borrowed clothes. Well, here's what's going on behind the fear. When you experience imposter syndrome, your brain activates the default mode network. This is a part of your brain that processes self-referential thoughts. There's a reason I write down these words because I can't pronounce them sometimes. In other words, it replays you to you all day long. That's that part of your brain that replays your greatest hits or your greatest failures like a giant drive-in movie in your head. And because the DMN is active during rest and rumination, it turns wins into doubt. And then it triggers your amygdala. Your amygdala starts tagging normal challenges as threats to your identity. You go into hyper alert. You overthink, you second guess, you over prepare, and you under rest. Hey, shout out to my pillow. And eventually, the fear of being found out causes paralysis, or worse, perfectionism. Seneca said, "It's not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." Craving more approval, more admiration, more validation, it all feeds that mask. The Stoics teach us live by action, not by image. Let your character, not your clout, be your credibility. If you live in a way that you're proud, that you are proud of who you are and would be counted as a valuable addition to society, the way you live is going to stand out, guys. And it's going to protect you as far as the way you're perceived, even if you're afraid, because it's natural for us to start to doubt ourselves. 2 Corinthians 12:9 says, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in your weakness." The kingdom flips the script. Where the words say, where the world says, hide your flaws, God says, that's where I shine. Your weakness isn't your enemy, it's your entry point into deeper strength. So let me offer you this suggestion. If you're struggling with Ghostface, if you feel like you're hiding behind a mask, that it's all a facade, try the mirror truth drill. Each morning, look at yourself in the mirror and say 3 true things: who you really are, what you really value, and what you've already overcome. Say it out loud and let your nervous system hear your identity spoken, not guessed, not hoped, declared out loud. I actually highly recommend you don't just do this in the morning, you do this right before you go to bed, because your brain retains the last thing you hear before you go to bed. It's a trick I use with my kids, and it's a trick I encourage fathers to use with their kids, right? It's very important to tell your children you, that you love them, that they're valuable, that they're seen, that they're amazing before they go to bed. It builds their identity because that's the last words they hear. Well, you can use this same trick or technique, whatever you want to call it, morning and right before you go to bed. And your brain is going to start to understand that this is your identity. This is who you are. This or retrains your brain to lead with truth, not performance. You can program your brain to recognize your identity, and then you no longer feel like you're wearing a mask. Now, imposter syndrome isn't cured by applause. It's cured by alignment. When you are, when who you are and what you say and what you do all line up, when you align everything about your identity, Ghostface has nothing to grab onto and he can't masquerade. Because you're not wearing a mask anymore, you're walking in your real skin. But what happens when the applause fades? What happens when you're not being doubted? You're being ignored. Well, let's meet that silent fear that creeps up when your highlight reel goes dark. Oh, you guys know who's coming. It is Halloween, and Michael Myers is waiting. And he's bringing the fear of losing relevance. You know Michael Myers, the shape, the form, if you're a proper fan. You know, the scary guy with the Captain Kirk mask turned inside out. The vibe, he's so slow, silent, always seems to be just off. He's always behind you. He's always watching. And no matter how far you run, how fast you move, he just keeps coming. It's not loud, it's not flashy, just present, inevitable. And when he shows up, it's already too late. That's what the fear of losing relevance feels like. It doesn't kick in during your climb. It creeps in when you pause, when the phone stops ringing, when your opinions don't get as many nods, or in the modern age, right? When your posts don't get as many likes or reshares. When someone newer, younger, louder starts doing what you do, that inner voice starts whispering again. You're being replaced. You've peaked. You're no longer needed or relevant. And suddenly, the man who once walked with confidence starts to drift, starts to wander and go off path. Well, this is what's happening in your brain. This fear hits your dopamine reward system hard, which, if you've listened to some of my other shows, dopamine's tricky. See, high achieving men are used to constant feedback, metrics, recognition, results. When that feedback slows or fades, your brain interprets that as a loss of value. The amygdala, there it is again, that tricky little bugger triggers social threat responses, anxiety, overcompensation, withdrawal. This is why so many successful men hit that air quotes midlife crisis and start chasing shiny things. New cars, new partners, new goals, not out of greed. It's actually about fear. Fear that they're being forgotten, passed by, and no longer are relevant in society. Marcus Aurelius said, don't hanker after what you don't have. Instead, fix your attentions on the finest and the best that you have. The Stoic trains himself to detach from praise and anchor to purpose. Relevance isn't determined by trending status. It's measured by how well you're stewarding what you've been given. Now, for full disclosure, I really think whoever translated that Marcus Aurelius quote took some liberties because I don't think there's a direct translation for hanker, but I could be wrong. Whether I'm right or not, I think they used the wrong word when they translated that quote from Marcus Aurelius, but it doesn't take away from the fact that it's accurate. You need to anchor in purpose. It's not about the praise, it's about the mission. Isaiah 46:4 reminds us, even to your old age and gray hairs, I am he. I am he who will sustain you. God doesn't retire men of purpose. He just repurposes them. You find it all through the Bible. When the world forgets your name, heaven still calls out your number because God doesn't retire men who are on purpose and on point. So let me offer this suggestion for you guys. If you're struggling with this deep fear, and this hits a lot of men, of becoming irrelevant or being forgotten, there's something called a legacy loop. And it works like this. Write down the names of 3 people you can intentionally invest in this season. Not because they need you to be impressive, because they need you to be present. Legacy isn't what you leave behind when you die, it's what you pour into people while you're still breathing. This might be your kids, and it's the season to reinvest in your children and make sure that you're present in their life. This might be a mentorship where you take in somebody that has a lot of potential and you can see it and you believe that you can help them develop it. They don't have to be related to you. This could be a big brother, big sister thing. This could be a kid at your church. This could be somebody who works for your company. Find 3 people that you can intentionally invest in this season. That will be what keeps you relevant for years to come, is the relationship you build with them and the intentionality of putting time into them to help them become the best versions of themselves. Here's the uncomfortable truth, gentlemen. You will be replaced in the marketplace. I will be replaced in the marketplace. You are irreplaceable in the hearts of those you choose to serve. I worked on a program for years. It's a now 40 plus year old program. And I talked to my co-directors on the program and said, we need to start finding younger guys to take over and take our places because we cannot do this forever. It is something my father taught me, and it's something I'm trying to share with you guys because relevance isn't found in applause. It's forged in relationships. And if you want it to outlive you, that happens by pouring into other people. But maybe your fear isn't being replaced. Not everybody has the same fears. Maybe it's the thought of having to start all over. Like everything you built could disappear in a flash. That monster is waiting in that fire, and he's got a red balloon for you because Pennywise the Dancing Clown is here. Let's talk about the fear of starting over. You see, you already escaped him once. You even beat him, or you thought, but it's hard to beat fear. You forgot about him with time. You quote unquote outgrew him, but somehow he always comes back. Doesn't matter what you've done, doesn't matter how it works. You're always starting over every time with him. The fear of starting over is like Pennywise lurking in the sewers of your life. It's a manifestation of things you thought you escaped, but haven't actually truly faced. Every time you consider a change, a new career, relationship, or identity, that same voice whispers, remember the last time you tried this? You could lose it all if you tried, Georgie. Feel free to mock. Like, no matter how far you've come, one bad break, one unexpected loss, and you're back at zero. At least it feels that way. Back to proving yourself, back to building from scratch. It's the fear that whispers, if this falls apart, you won't survive. You only have one chance. You won't be able to start again. You've come too far to lose it all now. So you stay stuck in the wrong job, in the wrong rhythm, in the wrong life, because rebuilding feels scarier than staying broken. Just ask the people in Derry. So, what's really actually going on behind the scenes? This fear is a direct hit to your identity. When your brain has wired your worth to what you've built, any disruption feels like ego death. And here it comes again. Your amygdala flags uncertainty as danger. I told you that's a tricky little bugger. It doesn't know the difference between the fear of being embarrassed and the fear of jumping into a shark tank. Your prefrontal cortex slows down the executive decision-making area of your brain. You freeze, not because you lack strength, but because your brain believes you're under threat. And when you're in that state, well, the idea of, air quotes, starting fresh doesn't feel like an opportunity. It feels like a funeral. Well, the Stoics teach us begin at once to live and count each separate day as a separate life. That's Seneca. The Stoic resets daily. He doesn't hoard old titles or cling to past victories. Doesn't matter what he did yesterday. He gets up, starts again, and greets the grind like an old friend. Isaiah 43:19 says, behold, I'm doing a new thing. Now it springs forth. Do you not perceive it? The Father is always building something new, but sometimes he's got to burn down the old house to pour the new foundation. Starting over isn't a setback, it's really sacred ground. So let me offer this suggestion. If you're dealing with Pennywise, run a Phoenix resume drill. List every time in your life where you were knocked down and got back up, because it's happened a lot, whether you remember it or not. Not the trophies, the actual rebuilds. Okay. Then ask, what did that version of me know that I've forgotten? Like I said, you've done this a lot in your life. You probably don't remember it. A lot of people put it out of mind because they do it successfully. It's not as bad as they thought it would be. And they actually forget where they came from on it. You've been knocked down and gotten back up many times in your life, or you would not be a high achieving individual. It's just part of the game. So write them all down, work hard, record them. We forget these things, but ask yourself over and over, what did that version of me know that I've forgotten? Because I'm here now and I wasn't then. You don't have to fear starting over when you remember that you've done it time and time and time again. This isn't a new game. This isn't something that's hitting you out of nowhere. The cause might be different this time, but the end result is the same. You will start over, rebuild, and come back stronger. That's the way the cycle works. You just got to remember that. Here's the truth. Greatness isn't measured by how long you've held the crown. It's measured by how many times you're willing to put it down and pick up the shovel again. You can even go back to the great Rocky quote that you know I love and pretty much every man does. Life isn't about how hard you can hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and get back up again. And I know that's the short version of it. Starting over isn't weakness. It's actually elite level courage. But what if the scariest risk isn't rebuilding your business? It's rebuilding trust. Let's step behind the mask of strength and talk about the fear most men never actually admit out loud. Leatherface is coming, guys, and he's bringing the fear of emotional intimacy. Now, you know Leatherface, whether you've seen the movies or not. Maybe you're not a horror fan, maybe you're not a slasher flick fan, but all of us know the chainsaw wielding maniac wearing somebody else's face, Leatherface, from Texas Chainsaw Massacre. He's brutal, it's raw, and he's hidden behind the skin of someone else, which just is creepy and makes it hard to see. He doesn't talk much, but when he acts, it's violent, it's messy, it's terrifying. Why? Because he doesn't know how to connect. He doesn't know how to be known. And so he lashes out. That's the fear of emotional intimacy in men. You don't explode like Leatherface, at least I hope not, but you avoid, you deflect, you armor up, you keep the people closest to you at arm's length. Now, I called this the fear of strength or the mask of strength for a reason, right? We put on a good face, we put on a good show, but we do it because emotional intimacy is terrifying and we weren't ever taught how to do it. Because somewhere deep down, the fear is whispering, if they really knew you, they'd leave. If you show weakness, they'll lose respect. If you open up, it will be used against you. So you play strong, you stay silent, and intimacy dies in the name of strength. Well, here's what's actually happening in your head, gentlemen. This fear triggers activity in the anterior cingulate cortex and insula. This is why I write these down. The parts of your brain associated with emotional pain and social rejection. Because most men are neurologically trained to equate vulnerability with danger, it's just the way we're raised, your nervous system treats emotional closeness like a threat. There's that amygdala kicking again. Your heart rate increases, your palms get sweaty, your words stumble, you shut down or you lash out. It's not that you don't feel, it's that your brain doesn't trust that it's safe to feel out loud. Zeno of Citium, the father of Stoicism, says, man conquers the world by conquering himself. The Stoic path isn't about emotional detachment. It's about emotional discipline. Strength isn't the absence of feeling, it's the mastery of it. James 5:6 says, confess your faults to one another and pray for one another that you may be healed. Now notice this, healing doesn't come through isolation. It comes through sharing, through connection, through truth shared in trusted places with trusted people. God designed connection to be a source of healing, not humiliation. So, may I suggest this if this is something that you struggle with? In your next conversation with your spouse, your kids, your best friend, try the 3% rule. Share just 3% more honesty than you might normally would. That might be saying out loud, "Hey, I've been overwhelmed lately," or "I'm afraid I'm messing this up." How about, "I need some help, but I didn't want to ask." See, we're not opening the floodgates. We're not just pouring our heart out necessarily. We're cracking the door. Trust is built in inches, not feet, guys. So work on this 3% rule because it's not near as scary. Admitting to a brother or to your wife, "Hey, I've been feeling overwhelmed lately." It's it's taking a little bite, right? It's taking baby steps, and that's okay because that's the start of building that emotional trust and emotional vulnerability. Here's the twist. The people that you're protecting by hiding your emotions, because we tell ourselves that's why we do it, they're actually starving for the real you to show up. And the strength you're afraid of losing, you'll find more of it on the other side of vulnerability, not less. But maybe emotional intimacy isn't your monster. Maybe it's something a little more subtle. But even if you open up, even if you stay close, stay present, stay real, there's one last monster, the one that creeps in when all the external success is still not enough. But before we unmask the next fear, let me tell you where I go to talk about the raw stuff, the fears I wrestle with the cameras off. If today's episode is hitting home for you and you want to hear how I personally tackle these monsters in real time, check out my exclusive show, Behind Closed Mics, Fallible and Unfiltered, only available on Patreon. That's where I take the gloves off, no polish, no filters, no scripts, just the truth about what it really looks like to build with purpose, lead your family while slaying the fears that follow you into every room. There's a link in the show notes. I'd love to see you guys there. But this last monster is not going to wait any longer. So guess what? Jason's waiting for you, you naughty camper. And he is the fear of never finding true purpose, but living in the same shallow loop over and over again. Now, we all know Jason Voorhees, just like a lot of these notable characters. Whether you watch the series, whether you're a horror fan, you know who they are. And you kind of have a good sense of them. Well, Jason Voorhees is the tank. You can burn him, bury him, blow him up, but somehow he always comes back. He's trapped in the same loop, the same reason, the same place forever, doing the exact same thing. In fact, no matter what they did to him in the series, whether they sent him to space or they sent him to the Big Apple, he always ended back up in the same place, running the same cycle every single time. For high achieving men, Jason doesn't live in Camp Crystal Lake. He lives in the silence after the win, in the hotel room after the keynote, in the quiet car ride home after the big close. He shows up with the same face no matter what. Unexpressive, dispassionate, just going through the motions, doing the same thing he always does over and over and again. And thinking, was that it? Is this really what you gave up everything for? You're successful, but are you actually significant? Another keynote down, another day. And suddenly the man who has it all starts to feel kind of hollow because he's just living that same loop over and over and over again. It's not impressive to him. It's not valuable to him. He doesn't even think it's that special because it's just his life and it doesn't have the meaning he's actually looking for. This fear hits your brain with that default mode network again, where meaning, making, and self reflection live. It's overactivated. You start ruminating because it's just working in overtime. The dopamine reward pathway has become desensitized. The thrill of the chase, the win, the external rewards, they don't feel like they used to anymore because they have become desensitized. And this creates this existential feedback loop. If success doesn't satisfy, well, what does? Left unchecked, this loop leads to burnout, disillusionment, even depression, because the brain can't find a target worth aiming at anymore. The Stoics tell us, he who lives in harmony with himself lives in harmony with the universe. Marcus Aurelius. Purpose isn't a destination, it's an alignment. The Stoic doesn't chase accolades, he lives according to a mission, a reason, a virtue, an internal order, a logos. He doesn't ask what's next, he asks what's right. Ephesians 2:10 says, "For we are God's workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do." The word workmanship, it comes from the Greek word paloma. We'll see if we can say it right. Where we get the word poem. You're not an accident. You're a crafted message. And purpose isn't something you discover like buried treasure. It's something you walk out step by step by step. So if you're starting to struggle with Jason, if you're dealing with this fear of never finding your true purpose, I have some options for you guys to try out. Worst case scenario, this doesn't solve it, but you know what? I think it's going to give you a good start because these are things I use in my life. Try a weekly purpose audit. Every Sunday night or Monday morning, ask yourself 2 questions. What gave me energy, meaning, and connection this past week? I actually recommend doing this every single day because the best option is to drill down really, really hard on this. So I wrote down in my notes to do it once a week, but honest to goodness, guys, I recommend doing this every single day. Let's not waste time. Let's just drill down. What gave me energy, meaning, and connection today? What drained me and felt empty no matter how productive it looked today? This is something that business owners really have to do as their businesses grow. It's something that perhaps a lot of business owners, because they get lost in the day-to-day instead of what their true calling is. If you're not sure what your purpose is yet, along with practicing this drill daily of what gave me energy, meaning, or connection this week and or today, and what drained me but felt empty no matter how productive it looked, get that list going. It's going to start helping you see things that light you up. But if you're still struggling with that purpose, start studying the greatness out there. Read biographies, watch documentaries, study people who inspire you, who move you, who have built something lasting that is bigger than themselves, that excites you. That's where spark comes from. Your purpose is going to show up in these answers that you've been ignoring. And as you're more inspired, as you're looking at bigger lives, it's going to really help flush out where you need to go from there. So here's the secret Jason doesn't actually want you to know. Purpose isn't something you find, it's something you practice. It's not waiting at the end of your to-do list. It's alive in the moments when you show up aligned, present, and obedient to your convictions. So now we've unmasked them, guys. We've talked about Freddy and the fear of failure, about Ghostface, the fear of being found out, about Michael Myers and the fear of losing relevance, Pennywise and the fear of starting over, Leatherface and the fear of vulnerability, and now Jason and the fear of never finding your true purpose. These monsters don't need pitchforks. They don't need garlic. Don't need silver bullets. They need truth. They need vision. And they need you armed with clarity, grounded in purpose, and walking in alignment. This Halloween, let's stop dressing up our fears with business, bravado, burnout. Let's name the monsters. Let's take the mask off. Let's get back to the mission. Until next time, stay grounded, stay purpose, and as always, be better tomorrow because of what you do today. And we'll see you on the next one.
The Driven to Thrive broadcast, purpose, growth, and lasting impact for men. helping men go from living to thriving, purpose-filled, intentional lives.